Hello and welcome to this episode of Math with Martinez. In today's video, we are solving quadratics by taking the square root. So let's go ahead and get started. Why would we want to use this method when we already know how to solve by factoring? That is a wonderful question. I'm glad you asked. We'll want to use this form of solving if our quadratic equation is in the form ax squared plus some c value. This is very important to be aware of. When would we want to use this? If we do not have that middle term. The solving using square roots is a great strategy. Now, we can be solved using the square root property if it looks like this. If we have x squared equals n, then your possible answers are that n is going to equal both the positive and negative, x is going to equal both the positive and negative square root of n. Because think this through with me here for a minute. If we were to take x squared equals n, how would we get x by itself? Well, we would be taking the square root of both sides. But, ladies and gentlemen, when we do that, there are actually two possible values that would make this true. Both the positive value that's squared and the negative value that's squared will give us that n value. So we want to make sure that we always have both positive and negative square root of that value when we're taking the square root. So that is that square root property that we want to be aware of. And there are just 3 steps to solving using our square roots. First step, isolate x squared. Second step, take the square root of both sides. And third step, simplify the radical. Make sure to place the plus or minus to indicate both answers. So let's go ahead and begin. Step number 1, we want to make sure and isolate our square root. So that's going to look like, in this first example, we're going to want to add 64 on each side so that we have x squared equals 64. Now, step number 2, take the square root of both sides and use that square root property so that we can go ahead and write that x equals, now our final step, both positive and negative. And we know that the square root of 64 is a perfect square. It is 8. So ladies and gentlemen, that would be our final answer. Let's bounce on over to number 3 and check this one out. Step number 1, isolate x squared. So first thing we'll want to undo is adding or subtracting. So we will subtract 5 on each side, giving us 81x squared equals 21 minus the 5 is going to be a 16. We're still not quite done. We still need to do more to isolate. We will need to divide by 81 since it's multiplying. Now my x squared is all by itself. Step number 2, take the square root of both sides. And then we are ready to go ahead and simplify and write our final answer. Make sure that we include both positive or negative. Now we take the square root of the top and the bottom. Remember how we would do this? We would take the square root of 16 and the square root of 81. And the square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 81 is 9. So our final answer is both positive and negative 4/9. All right, just one more here in this video that I want to look at, and that is example number 5. Let's look at this one now. In example number 5, let's go ahead and begin by isolating our x squared. What are we going to do? What is our first step to isolate x squared? It is to add, It is to add 9 on each side. That gives us 2x squared equals the 64. Then what must we do, ladies and gentlemen? Then we divide by 2, and now we have isolated our square root. And it is, our x squared, and can take the square root. Let's go ahead and take that square root of each side. And now it's time to simplify. We have x equals both the positive and negative square root of 32, but 32 is not a perfect square. So we're going to need to break it into pieces. Remember how we were doing this? What is the largest perfect square that is a factor of 32? It is 16 and 2. So x is equal to both positive and negative square root of 16 times square root of 2, which simplifies to positive negative 4 square root 2. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our final answer. So we've done about half these examples here in the video. We will do the other half together. If you had any questions, will you please take a moment and share those now? And until next time, stay fired up, you guys.